Be me, 26, marketing coordinator in Seattle. Hardcore feminist since college, women's studies minor. Always posting about toxic masculinity and male privilege. Dating apps are my battlefield. I educate men about their problematic behavior. My Instagram is full of know your worth queen, and men are threatened by strong women. Have a podcast called Deconstructing the Patriarchy with 2K followers. Most of my content is roasting men who can't handle independent women. Best friend Emma is same energy. She's got 50K TikTok followers. Makes videos about how men need to step up or step out. We spend Friday nights swiping through dating apps together, rating men's profiles and screenshotting the worst ones for content. Our group chat is called Male Tears Collectors. We genuinely believe we're doing important social justice work. One night scrolling through Bumble, see this guy Jake, 28, software engineer. Decent looking, has dogs, normal job. His bio says, just looking for genuine connection, tired of games. Emma rolls her eyes. Red flag. He's probably a nice guy TM. I match with him anyway, planning to educate him about his privilege. Figure I can get some good content out of this. Jake messages first. Hey, love your hiking photos. Where was that taken? Genuine question, no pickup line. I respond, but keep it dry, waiting for him to mess up. He asks thoughtful questions about my hobbies. Doesn't immediately ask for my number or suggest meeting. Actually seems interested in getting to know me as a person. This is confusing. Where's the toxic masculinity I can call out? Week of decent conversation. He suggests coffee. I agree, but bring Emma as backup to witness his inevitable problematic behavior. He shows up on time, pays for his own coffee without making a big deal. Asks if we want anything else, doesn't insist on paying for us. Emma whispers he's love bombing you. Classic manipulation. But Jake seems genuinely nervous, asks good questions, listens to answers. He mentions he's been single for 2 years, says modern dating is exhausting and feels like a job interview. Emma immediately pounces, maybe because you're not bringing enough to the table. Jake goes quiet, nods politely, says, you're probably right. I should work on myself more. I'm waiting for him to get defensive or argue. Instead, he just agrees and changes the subject. After Emma leaves, Jake and I keep talking. He mentions he used to be more confident, but dating apps destroyed his self-esteem. Says he gets maybe one match a week. Most don't respond. When they do, conversations die after a few messages. I'm thinking, good. Men need to understand what women go through. But something about how defeated he sounds bothers me. He shows me his dating app stats. Greater than 3,000 right swipes. 12 matches in 6 months. 8 of those matches never responded. 4 conversations that died after basic small talk. 0 dates until me. I'm shocked. He's not ugly or creepy, just average. Ask him what he thinks is wrong. He shrugs. I'm 5 feet 8 inches, make decent money, but not rich. Pretty boring, I guess. Start asking more questions about his experience. He pays for premium on 3 different apps. $80 per month total. Spent $200 on professional photos that barely helped. Rewrote his bio dozens of times based on online advice. Even paid for dating coaching that told him to be more alpha. When that didn't work, try being more sensitive and feminist friendly. Nothing worked. Women just weren't interested. He pulls up his Hinge profile, shows me the thoughtful responses he writes to prompts. They're actually good, funny, and genuine. But his stats are brutal. 2% match rate. I'm getting uncomfortable because this doesn't fit my narrative. In my head, men are drowning in options while women struggle. But Jake seems more lonely and rejected than any woman I know. Ask him about his friends' experiences. He laughs bitterly. What friends? Most guys I knew gave up on dating entirely. Says his college buddy Marcus hasn't been on a date in 3 years. Another friend, Alex, only matches with bots and OnlyFans promoters. His roommate, Chris, got a match, went on 1 date. Girl spent the whole time on her phone, then ghosted him. Chris deleted all his apps and says he's done trying. I'm starting to feel weird about this. My whole worldview is that men have it easy and women have to fight for respect. But Jake seems more defeated than entitled. He's not angry at women or spouting incel rhetoric, just quietly accepted that he's not good enough for anyone. This isn't the toxic masculinity I came here to document. We end up talking for 3 hours. He tells me about his hobbies: rock climbing, cooking, reading. Volunteers at an animal shelter on weekends. Has a close relationship with his mom and sister. Sounds like a decent human being. But he talks about himself like he's fundamentally flawed, like he needs to apologize for existing. When we're leaving, he says, "Thanks for actually talking to me." Most women seem bored within 10 minutes. I ask what he means. He says women often seem like they're interviewing him for a job he's not qualified for. Like they're mentally checking boxes, and he fails most of them. Height, income, social status, Instagram followers. He just doesn't measure up to their standards. Drive home thinking about our conversation. Text Emma. "Jake might actually be a good guy." She responds, "Girl, don't fall for the manipulation. They're all the same. But I can't shake the feeling that something is off about my assumptions. This doesn't match what I've been preaching about male privilege in dating." Decide to do some research for my podcast. Start reading men's perspectives on dating forums. Holy shit, the statistics are brutal. Greater than 80% of women swipe right on only 4% of men. Average guy gets 0 to 1 matches per week on apps. Women receive 100x more likes than average men. Suicide rates for single men are skyrocketing. Find studies about dating app economics. Apps make money by keeping men desperate and swiping. They literally suppress men's profiles unless they pay for boosts. The whole system is designed to extract money from lonely men. Women swipe through dozens of attractive options daily. Men fight for scraps of attention. Read about hypergamy and how women typically date up. Most women won't date men shorter, poorer, or less educated than them. But women now out-earn men in cities and have advanced degrees. The pool of acceptable men is shrinking while standards rise. Meanwhile, men are told their struggles are just toxic masculinity. Start looking at the numbers differently. 1 in 3 young men are virgins compared to 1 in 8 women. Young men report more loneliness and depression than any time in history. Marriage rates are at all-time lows, birth rates collapsing. Men are increasingly dropping out of college and careers. The men's session has been going on for decades, but no one talks about it. Feel sick reading about male suicide rates. Men kill themselves 4x more than women. Single men have the highest rates. But when they express pain, they're told to man up or that it's their own fault. Their suffering is either ignored or blamed on their own toxicity. Where's the empathy we demand for women's mental health? Jake texts me asking if I want to go hiking. I agree, feeling guilty about my initial intentions. During the hike, he opens up more about his struggles. Says he feels invisible most of the time. When he tries to express loneliness, people tell him he's entitled. When he works on himself, people say it should be for the right reasons. Can't win no matter what he does. He mentions his friend who killed himself last year. Brad was 29, good job, nice guy, just couldn't find love or connection. Left a note saying he felt like a burden on everyone. That dating apps made him feel worthless. Jake's voice breaks talking about it. Says he thinks about Brad every time he opens Tinder. I'm crying now because this is the first time someone explained male loneliness to me. Not with anger or hatred, just quiet desperation. Jake puts his hand on my shoulder. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring you down. He's literally apologizing for sharing his pain. This is what we've done to men, made them feel guilty for existing. Ask him what would help. He thinks for a long time. Says, just acknowledgement that this is hard for us too. We're not all privileged oppressors swimming in options. Some of us are drowning and pretending we're fine. Maybe don't assume every guy who approaches you is trying to manipulate you. Realize I've been part of the problem. My content has been painting all men as entitled predators. But Jake and his friends aren't predators. They're just lonely humans who've been told their loneliness is toxic. That wanting love and connection makes them problematic. We've created a world where being male is seen as inherently suspicious. Go home and look at my social media with new eyes. All my posts about scrotes and low-value males. Jokes about men's mental health and dating struggles. Screenshots mocking guys for trying to start conversations. I've been bullying people who are probably just lonely. Emma calls asking about the hike. I try to explain what I learned. She says I'm being manipulated by patriarchal sob stories. That men's rights activists have gotten to me. But I'm not talking about men's rights, just basic human empathy. She gets angry and says I'm betraying feminism. Start researching what's actually happening to young men. Educational achievement gap. Women earn 60% of college degrees. Economic shift. Women out-earn men under 30 in most cities. Social status. Men seen as bumbling idiots in media and culture. Dating market. Completely restructured by apps to favor women. But we still talk about these issues like it's 1950. The more I read, the more depressed I get. We've spent decades fighting for women's equality, rightfully, but somehow created a system that destroys average men, and then mock them when they struggle with the consequences. Call them incels for expressing loneliness. Tell them their problems are their own fault. Jake texts me article about deaths of despair among young men. Overdoses, suicide, alcohol poisoning at record highs. These aren't angry misogynists. They're broken people. Society keeps telling them they're privileged while they're dying inside. Their pain is dismissed because helping men isn't politically correct. Decide to make a podcast episode about what I've learned. Emma threatens to stop being friends if I platform male victimhood. Other feminist friends say I'm being brainwashed. But I can't ignore what I've seen. These men aren't my enemy. They're casualties of a broken system. Record episode called The Loneliness Epidemic I Didn't See. Talk about Jake's experience and the statistics I found. Admit I was wrong about male privilege in dating. Say we need empathy for struggling men, not more shame. Comments section explodes. Half my female followers call me a traitor. Say I've been pick-me-iffied by male manipulation. That I'm setting back feminism by centering men's feelings. But some women thank me for opening their eyes. And hundreds of men share their own stories. Lost 1,000 followers in a week, but gained 2,000 new ones. Comments from men saying they felt seen for the first time. Stories about suicide attempts, depression, complete social isolation. Guys thanking me for not calling them toxic for being lonely. This response tells me everything I need to know. Jake and I keep dating. The more I understand his world, the more ashamed I feel. He's genuinely a good person who's been beaten down by society, made to feel like his existence is a problem to be solved. That wanting love makes him entitled. That his struggles don't matter because he's a man. He tells me about his job in tech, how HR constantly talks about diversity, but means everyone except men. How he has to walk on eggshells around female coworkers. One false move, and he's labeled as creepy or problematic. The anxiety of being a man in spaces that see masculinity as toxic. Start noticing things I never saw before. How men get treated in public spaces. Suspicious looks when they're around children. Assumed to be predators until proven otherwise. Women clutching purses when they pass men on sidewalks. The constant low-level hostility they face just for existing. Realize the feminist movement overcorrected. We went from fighting inequality to creating new forms of it. Men are now the majority of college dropouts. More likely to be homeless, die younger, commit suicide. But we can't talk about it without being accused of misogyny. Their suffering is politically inconvenient. Emma and I have a huge fight. She says I betrayed everything we worked for. That centering men's pain takes focus away from women's issues. I tell her suffering isn't a competition, that maybe we can care about both women and men. She calls me brainwashed and blocks me. Lose most of my feminist friends over this. They see acknowledging men's struggles as heresy, like there's only so much empathy to go around. And men don't deserve any because they're the oppressor class, even when individual men are clearly suffering. Jake introduces me to his friend group. Marcus, the one who hasn't dated in 3 years. He's actually funny and kind, just gave up trying. Says every interaction with women feels like a test he's destined to fail. Has anxiety attacks before dates now. Decided it's easier to just be alone. Meet Alex, who only matches with bots. Shows me his phone. 50 matches, all fake profiles. Some selling OnlyFans, others straight-up scams. The few real women who match never respond. He spent thousands on premium features for nothing. Laughs about it, but I can see the pain in his eyes. Chris tells me about his one date this year. Woman showed up 30 minutes late, didn't apologize. Spent an entire dinner talking about her ex and scrolling Instagram. When check came, she stared at him expectantly. He paid $150 for the worst night of his month. She texted later saying there was no spark. These aren't bad guys. They're not misogynists or incels. Just normal men who've been brutalized by modern dating. Told they're not good enough in 1,000 different ways. Then mocked when they withdraw from the game entirely. Start interviewing more men for my podcast. Stories pour in from around the country. Engineers, teachers, nurses, construction workers. All describing the same crushing loneliness. The same sense that they're fundamentally unwanted. That society would prefer they just disappear quietly. One guy tells me about contemplating suicide. Says what stopped him was thinking about his mom finding his body. Not because he wanted to live, but couldn't bear traumatizing her. He's 24 years old and already feels like his life is over. Because no woman has ever shown genuine interest in him. Another man describes being 6 feet 2 inches and decent looking, but ethnic. Gets matches, but conversations die when they see his last name. Or when he mentions his culture or family. Says he feels like he's not white enough for most women, but too white for women of his own background. Podcast grows to 50K followers. Mix of men grateful for acknowledgement and women angry at me. Some feminists create response videos calling me male-identified. Say I'm perpetuating patriarchal narratives about male victimhood. But the stories I'm hearing are too consistent to ignore. Interview dating coaches who work with men. They confirm everything. Men's confidence is at historic lows. Most clients aren't looking to manipulate women. They just want basic human connection and intimacy. But they're taught to see their desires as inherently problematic. One coach tells me about client suicide attempts. Says he's had 3 men try to kill themselves after brutal rejections. Not because they felt entitled to sex, but because they interpreted rejection as confirmation they're worthless. Society offers no support for men's emotional pain. Jake and I have been dating 6 months now. He's slowly rebuilding his self-worth. But I see how deep the damage goes. He still flinches when I compliment him, like he's waiting for me to realize my mistake and leave. Apologizes constantly for taking up space. His therapy sessions reveal years of internalized shame. Told he's privileged while feeling powerless. That his struggles don't matter because others have it worse. That wanting love makes him needy and unattractive. He's been gaslighted about his own experiences. Start connecting with other women who've woken up to this. Turns out many are quietly questioning the narrative, seeing their brothers, sons, friends struggle in silence, but afraid to speak up because of social consequences. The sisterhood punishes empathy for men. One woman tells me about her son's depression. He's 19, handsome, smart, but completely isolated. Tried dating apps for months with 0 success. Now stays in his room playing video games. She's terrified he'll hurt himself, but doesn't know how to help. Another describes watching her husband's confidence erode. He used to be outgoing and social. But years of being treated as a potential threat changed him. Now he barely speaks to women outside their family. She sees how society has beaten him down. Realize we've created a generation of broken men. And then wonder why marriage rates are plummeting. Why birth rates are collapsing. Why young people seem so miserable and isolated. We broke the social fabric and blame men for not adapting. My new content focuses on rebuilding empathy, encouraging women to see men as individuals, not a monolith, to consider that loneliness and rejection hurt everyone, that maybe some toxic behavior is actually trauma response. not to excuse it, but to understand it. Comments from women are fascinating. Many admit they never considered men's emotional experiences, that they assumed all men had endless options and confidence. Some share stories of treating lonely men cruelly and feeling guilty after learning about their struggles. Others get defensive, say I'm blaming women for men's problems. But I'm not assigning blame, just asking for awareness. That the pendulum might have swung too far. That equality doesn't mean men's pain doesn't matter. That we can lift women up without crushing men. Jake proposes after a year of dating. Says I'm the first person who made him feel worthy of love. That he'd given up on ever finding someone. Was planning to just work and die alone. I cry thinking about how close I came to missing this. Wedding planning reveals more gender dynamics. His friends are shocked anyone wanted to marry. Like they can't believe a woman chose one of them. My friends, the few I have left, seem confused. Can't understand why I'd settle for an average guy. Realize this is the core problem. We've convinced women they deserve princes, while telling men they're lucky to get scraps. Created unrealistic standards that make everyone miserable. Then blame men when they can't meet impossible expectations. Honeymoon in Japan, Jake finally seems at peace. Says he never thought he'd experience love like this. That he was ready to accept a life of complete isolation. I think about all the good men who never get this chance. Who die alone because society convinced them they're worthless. Back home, continue the podcast with new perspective. Talk about healthy masculinity instead of just toxic masculinity. Encourage women to give average men genuine chances. To see past the cultural narrative that all men are predators. That maybe loneliness is making everyone cruel. Get invited to speak at universities. Students are hungry for this message. Young women admit dating apps made them entitled. Young men share stories of complete romantic isolation. Everyone seems exhausted by the gender war. One college sophomore tells me he's never kissed a girl. Spends 5 hours a day at the gym trying to become worthy. Still gets no matches on apps. His roommates mock him, but they're all in the same boat. Generation of young men convinced they're genetic failures. Female students describe dating app addiction. Swiping through hundreds of men looking for perfection. Never satisfied because there's always a better option. Treating human beings like shopping catalogs. Then wondering why relationships feel superficial. Start advocating for dating app regulation. These platforms are destroying mental health. Especially for men who get psychologically abused by the algorithms. But also for women who become addicted to validation. Everyone loses except the tech companies. Jake and I try to set up his single friends. But the women in my life have impossible standards. Want tall, rich, Instagram-worthy men. Can't see past superficial traits to character. Then complain there are no good men left. Marcus finally agrees to a blind date. Woman shows up, takes one look, says she has to leave. Doesn't even give him a chance to speak. He texts me later, maybe I should just give up permanently. I don't know what to tell him because maybe he's right. This is what we've created. A system where average men are treated as subhuman. Where loneliness is seen as moral failing. Where empathy for male suffering is heretical. And we wonder why everything is falling apart. My podcast now has 200K followers. Mix of grateful men and supportive women. Also angry feminists who see me as a traitor. But the stories keep pouring in. Too many to ignore, too consistent to dismiss. Interview psychologists about the male loneliness epidemic. They confirm it's the worst mental health crisis no one talks about. Young men are dying of despair at unprecedented rates. But seeking help is seen as weakness. Society offers no support systems for struggling men. One therapist tells me about his male clients. Says they come in broken by dating apps and social rejection. Convinced they're fundamentally flawed as human beings. Many have never experienced physical affection from anyone. Some haven't had a real conversation with a woman in years. Start connecting with international researchers. This problem exists across the developed world. Japan's herbivore men, South Korea's dating strike. European studies showing male social isolation. Everywhere women gained equality, men started disappearing. Not because equality is bad, but because we never learned to value men for anything except provision. When women became financially independent, many men lost their only source of worth, and society offered no replacement narrative. Jake and I are trying to have kids now. I think about raising sons in this world. How to teach them self-worth when society sees them as problems. How to prepare them for a dating market designed to destroy them. How to give them hope when statistics suggest hopelessness. Also think about daughters. Don't want to raise entitled princesses who can't see men's humanity. Want them to have empathy for everyone's struggles. To judge people by character, not superficial traits. To understand that love requires giving, not just taking. My old feminist friends have completely ostracized me. Say I've been brainwashed by the patriarchy. That centering men's pain is anti-feminist. But I think feminism should be about equality, not revenge. About lifting everyone up, not tearing half the population down. Realize the movement I once loved became something toxic. Less about justice and more about justified cruelty. Using historical oppression to excuse present-day callousness. Creating new hierarchies instead of dismantling old ones. This isn't the equality I signed up for. Jake's transformation has been incredible to watch. From broken, apologetic shell to confident partner. But it took one person believing in him. Seeing his worth when society told him he was worthless. How many good men never get that chance? End each podcast episode the same way. Men, your struggles matter and your pain is real. Women, these are our brothers, sons, and partners. Maybe it's time to remember we're all human beings. And loneliness doesn't care about your politics. No, I'll never be accepted by mainstream feminism again. But I've seen too much to go back to ignorance. The statistics are clear, the suffering is real. And maybe admitting we got some things wrong is the first step toward actually fixing them. Looking back, I understand why men have lost hope. We told them they were privileged while they were drowning, mocked their loneliness and called it entitlement, created systems that crush their spirits, then wondered why they stopped trying. If you're a woman reading this, I have one request. Try to see the men around you as individuals, not representatives of historical oppression. Some of them are struggling more than you know, and maybe your empathy could save a life. Because behind every bitter internet comment, every withdrawn guy who stopped approaching women, every man who gave up on love entirely, is someone who just wanted to be wanted, and society convinced them they never would be. The hope isn't lost, but it's fading fast, and we're all going to have to decide. Do we want to be right, or do we want to be happy? Do we want revenge, or do we want love? The future depends on how we answer.